Hello, good afternoon. My name is James Rock from DesignThinkers Group in the UK. I'm going to be hosting the webinar this afternoon, the Global Human Research Project, and our findings from that, and regarding what we've discovered about people during lockdown and what it possibly means for the new normal as we come out of the coronavirus crisis and people's expectations about their home life and their work life. I'm going to be joined this afternoon by my colleagues, Marita Phelan. She's based in Helsinki and Seattle in the USA, and Jorge Rodriguez, who's based in Barcelona, and the three of us are going to be sharing the talking this afternoon. Just a little bit of logistics about how we'll work today. We're going to switch everyone's microphones off. We're going to switch off everyone's videos for the first part of the webinar, and then following an introduction to our speakers, we'll go into a half an hour presentation about the new normal, and the three of us will be talking. And then we'll have a question and answer session, and that will go on into a discussion. And Marita is going to be collecting the questions. So if you have any, please use the chat function and put them in the chat box. And then at the end, we'll stay online in what we call the decompression zone, so that any of you want to hang around and have a chat with us after, share any insights that you may have. We'd love to see you. Moving on to the introductions, let me tell you about myself. I'm founder and managing partner of DesignThinkers Group in the UK. I've been doing that for about the last 8 or 9 years. Before that, I began my career in product design, and after about probably about 20 years of working in product design in the automotive industry for companies like Ford and Jaguar, then I went away and did an MBA, and following that moved into consultancy and focused very much on business design and change management, business transformation, business process re-engineering, agile transformation, lean, and Six Sigma, etc. Now I'm very much focused on social impact design and have been director of Social Up, which is a project funded by the European Union Erasmus Plus scheme over the last 3 years. And that's been about creating a free online toolkit and training materials for people working in social enterprises, NGOs, charities, etc. I guess just to finish off, I would say that through my career, I've been passionate about human-centered design, and that very much formed the basis of my interest in the Global Human Research Project. Let me introduce Marita Phelan. She's founder and CEO of Aranci LLC, an independent consultancy organization based in the USA. And she has a partnership with an organization called Hofstede Insights, who are experts at global culture in terms of culture change and leadership. She has considerable expertise in business transformation. She's passionate about international cultures, and she's co-author of a book on Nokia and the transformation they went through and what went wrong and how did the wheels fall off. Right now, I'm going to hand you over to Jorge Rodriguez, who's founding and managing partner of DesignThinkers Group in Spain.
Yes, I used to work for Sony Pictures and more in the entertainment industry, trying to figure out markets and new niches to market. I joined the Design Thinkers Group like some 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And since then, I've been running the Design Thinkers Group Spain, also with work in Latin America and Spanish speaking countries. I'm currently, as you can see, director for a research program at a university here that I created and run. And from the work, 10 years of work in this university, I have created a research methodology. So that's somehow the methodology used in the Global Human Research Project that we started with Whiteboard uh, as soon as the pandemic started. So this was a kind of reaction to the pandemic, trying to understand how life will change for people and for everyone. And that's the core of it. And I'm very active in research groups, and I'm very active in research, industrial research, or market research for clients, private clients, companies, big and small, governments as well in social innovation. And I do write and blog and very active in social media. And that's pretty much it. Very, very, very pleased to be here sharing with James and being able to share with you. This is the third chapter that we have. We started the Global Human Research Project as with two intentions. More like a way to help clients and to understand which changes we're going to go. If you go to the next slide, James, a little bit about the background of this is the collaboration that Design Thinkers Spain has had with Whiteboard, which is innovation and service design company in Israel that is part of the Design Thinkers Group. We've been working for some years researching for telco companies, researching for IT companies around the world with the network of researchers that we have developed in the last 10 years, it's been possible to create a global network, and realizing that we had this network combining the research network and the Design Thinkers Group network. It came up the idea of understanding how was this event happening at a global scale, because we realized that is the first time that the whole planet is under the same circumstances and is affected more or less in the same way. And everybody was going to be locked down around the globe for at least 1 month. Well, it was longer. So we started researching, and we connected with researchers in 33 countries. We started creating a method to be able to let them ask key things about change in their lives, meaning that we should really understand how the pandemic was going to be a tipping point, like uh, like of our era. So we understood that the changes were going to be deep, and they're still happening. Like almost 5 months later, they're still happening, and we're understanding that this new normal that the webinar addresses is still under construction. So we've been monitoring these changes. We have used artificial intelligence and human intelligence in a combination to be able to process the information. So we had people going virtually, going to people's homes and talking to people they knew, directly people. And that's why we call it global human research. We're more interested in how people change, how the human behavior change, rather than seeing them as only consumers, as only market objectives. We want to understand how the mentality, the habits change, because that is what is going to affect all the rest of the behaviors in social arenas or commercial arenas or industrial arenas. So when people change, the market changes, the culture changes, the politics change. So the main point of this initiative is to understand how people change, how the mind change, the behavior change, and from there, how everything changes: politics, economy, consumption, etc., etc. If we go to the next slide, we do have a report that we created once. I had it here. Once we were able to go from four main pillars into more than 30 key insights. The numbers are still running. I mean, the insights are still uh, popping up. And as the pandemic develops, the COVID has been transforming life at every level around the world. And we can see the differences like in Europe and the United States in the first world and the third world in a very different way. So this report is the product of the first part of the Global Human Research Project and contains the key insights that we have realized after the first analysis that we done. And part of that analysis was actually trying to understand which were the actors of this pandemia. If we go to the next slide with the personas, um, as we interviewed so many people around the world in countries like India, Australia, Colombia, Finland, Spain, uh, we started finding patterns, and we started finding that many of the situation, and mostly many of the type of people that were affected in the same way were present around the globe. So we could find like the senior entrepreneur, for example, somebody who is in the middle, first round in the middle, um, the senior entrepreneur that is, like about to complete the life of a business, and finding this type of situation where he's not really tech savvy. He has a regular business and he's run this business for all his life, and now suddenly everything changes and most of the things become digital. So we realized that there were patterns in types of people, and we also realized that there were patterns in the type of reaction, the type of behaviors, how these people responded to the different situations that COVID brought. So we have people working at home, like millions and millions of people trying to work at home and trying to manage how to deal with work and family life at the same time. We had a lot of people closing businesses. We had a lot of people fired. So this happened around the globe, and we created a set of personas. We actually have these six personas. We are creating more personas locally with a specific information. For example, last week the Moroccan persona was created, a specific situations, and we're working on this. So beyond understanding the main insights, the purpose was understanding people and how different behaviors and different patterns were present, and they were repeated around the globe. Basically, that's where we are now. And I guess I will pass it over to James with the key insights.
Thank you, Jorge. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting from the amount of data that was collected across the world by this myriad of conversations that went on between researchers and the people that we collected into personas. And from that data, we started mapping that using an insights map and collecting them together under different groupings, which you can see here. And we came to the conclusion that there were 25 key insights that would be appropriate to think about as we move into the new normal, and that these were grouped around certain areas about working life, about home life, about finance, about family, about communication, etc. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 5 or 6 of those that we group together. But as Jorge said, we found this pretty much the same right across the world because we were looking at it from a human perspective. So here's one of the insights that we got from the UK, that there is no safety net. People felt there was no safety net. And that everything I will do from now on will be in the light of coronavirus. And I think that came from the perspective that there are, in the UK, there are about 40% of the people live from paycheck to paycheck. And they didn't have a safety net. And many millions of people lost their income straight away. The government stepped in and furloughed and helped, to a certain extent, people who were employed by organizations, but people who were self-employed, people who had their own businesses, they didn't get any financial help. And one of the things that was critical for them is that they went into survival mode, and they realized that in future, this no safety net was not a good place to be, and they resolved, I think, to build up a safety net in future. And so I think, you know, we're only really just scratching the surface of the financial and economic impact of coronavirus. And there are already 3 million in the UK who've lost their jobs. There are 20 million in the US who've already lost their jobs. There are forecast to be at least as many that again as we move out of government support schemes, as we move into the autumn. And so this no safety net is going to be pretty critical. Though after the last financial crisis in 2008, 2009, lots of people lost their houses. I think the expectation is that, you know, as we move into the autumn, it's going to be the start of a long, cold winter as people start losing their homes, as government support comes back, as the predicted upturn in the economy perhaps doesn't come through as strong as we hope, and especially now that we're seeing second waves of virus growing now across the world, and we're likely to move back into lockdown conditions. I'll pass you over to Marita.
Yeah, hi, I'm back, and yeah, so I'm talking about Michaela and this persona, and about, as James pointed out, that the bottom there is their insights, and that this one is about rerouting money. And what happened when this spring was that both the income and the spending habits were disrupted, and people has to figure out very quickly how to move forward with their spending habits and buying behaviors. And as this one persona we created is saying, and that's a quote from the Global Human Research report, that we stop buying unnecessary items. We just don't know how long this crisis will last. So that was during the interviews were done in this spring. So now we can see, as James was pointing out in his presentation, that it's really going to last probably longer than we expected. But there are people who have enough savings then directed their investments and investment portfolios. So they are also changing their behaviors and how they invest and spend money, as well as then just those who are maybe trying to focus more on saving and just trying to rethink how to go about their daily habits and how to buy any items needed and just stick to those ones which are needed. Maybe the next slide. Okay, yeah, and then there is another one from US, and this is to do with the insights doing with the weaving life and work. And I think this persona is really about those people who started working from home overnight in some cases, that they had to set up the working environment at home. Challenge. And through the report, there is quite a bit about those families and working professionals, white-collar professionals who work from home, that they really have to manage and reinvent their lives in terms of working from home, managing their children, especially if they were small children, as they were at home, and how to get organized around them, work effectively, and at the same time manage the children and even educate their children. So there was a lot of that about that in the report, saying it's quite exhausting for the working parents who have small children at home, especially.
Okay. Jorge, over to you.
One very interesting thing that we also noticed, like when analyzing the information that arrived from around the world, was a kind of new situation between people. So the human approach changed, and the way we related to each other changed as well. And we found ourselves in a shared trouble, which means that suddenly we realized that how fragile we are and how vulnerable we can be. And then we start, as humans, we start understanding that we need to support each other, and we find ourselves maybe fading some of the social and economic differences in many countries because we are in the same, let's say, the same boat. So we find ourselves in the same critical situation. We find ourselves in danger, in danger of extinction and health danger. So we understand that our relationships to other people need to change. And we start talking to our neighbors, for example. We start talking to people on the street or in the queue for the supermarket. There was a very interesting anecdote here in Spain, that people were so bored at home, like being locked down at home, that going to the supermarket and queue was the best moment of the day because they could talk to somebody. So the way we started relating to each other changed in a very individualistic work, in a very self-paced culture around the world. That started to change. So we understood that the other was around there, and that we had some type of common purpose, that was, we need to get out of this. We need to do something about it. We need to understand the situation, and this matters to everyone. So this was a sense of maybe solidarity that brought our human side back, and made us realize that we're vulnerable and we're just humans in the planet. So we realized that individualism was okay in the previous normality, but when we're in danger, we realized that we need other people. So that was an interesting finding, and that was present all around the world. And we beyond the interviews, we could see that in many clippings from media, anecdotes, social media, etc. In the next slide, we see another interesting thing, That this comes from Latin America, from Peru exactly, and is the 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 uncertainty we already have and that we have been already experienced for some years about our sources of information and the information itself. So in these type of situations, when we are in danger, when the danger is directly pointing to our health and our survival, we need information as people, and we need to trust this information. So so in the last, let's say, 5 years, the rise of the fake news has been a phenomenon that we are being aware of a lot recently, with the U.S. elections, with other international movements that are putting information, to mix and disinform instead of inform. So we started being very careful in understanding this ambiguity. So understanding which are the right sources, which is the information that we need to filter, how can we filter information, how official information can also be wrong because this was a special situation. So there were partial developments in the information, mostly scientific information, since this is a new virus and this is a new situation. Both government, political, and science were uncertain. So this uncertainty was transmitted to the media and to information sources, and people started realizing that they need to be a little bit more picky and filter a lot more about their sources, the sources they have in social media, the sources they have in the news, they have the sources they have in traditional media, and most people realize that they need to verify everything more than once or twice. So this is very, very interesting because our sense of trust got really sharp, into trying to filter and trying to decode which of those sources made sense, and we were comparing lots of sources to really find out what was actually going on and learn how to manage the pandemic situation. And I hand to James, I guess.
Thank you, Jorge. Before moving on, I just want to say we've had quite a few people join us since the beginning, and Marita just put something up on the chat, and I just want to remind people, if they have questions as we go through this, please just put it into the chat box, and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. Moving on, I guess, I found myself asking the question, as many people no doubt will have as well, that we have all this data, but so what? So what? What are we going to do with all this information, all this research that we did? And I guess for me it was a situation that we need to think about moving from the old normal, the pre-COVID, the situation that everyone was in, and start thinking about the new normal. And one of the things that seemed to have happened was that a lot of the immediate changes were really just sticking plaster solutions. I can give you an example about that. People were asked to work from home because of the lockdown. And I remember calling my bank customer service center, and they said, well, we can't answer that question because I'm working at home, but I don't have access to the computer system with all your information on, because we won't allow that access outside of the physical building of the bank. And so it said to me that, these are just ways of, mission critical sticking plaster solutions to keep things going during the emergency. And that as we move out of the emergency, we have to start to think about, okay, where are we going to go? There have been all sorts of commentaries about, well, everybody's going to work from home in future. Well, from our findings, we know that a lot of people don't want to work from home. They want to go back to work, at least part of the time, if not all of the time. And there are lots of assumptions, if you like. And so it says to me that, as we move to this new normal, every organization needs to do their own research about their own customers, about their own users, about their own stakeholders, if you like. And they need to think about what are they trying to do? Are they just trying to rethink the current situation and get it to function? Are they trying to reimagine the business with a little bit of more ambition? Or are they trying to completely reinvent it? And are there constraints that they might have that stop them doing this? Because if they have to lay off employees, if sales are down, will they have the finance to invest, etc.? And I've spoken to a couple of organizations, and actually they see this as an opportunity to disrupt, to actually move away and see new opportunities based on these new behaviors and new value systems that their customers and new groups of customers can have. And I guess through the last 25 years of working on strategy projects and business transformations, agile transformations, business process re-engineering projects, Six Sigma projects, lean manufacturing projects, I guess the key thing for me, and I've discussed this with my colleagues, is that we came up with a 6C framework, that there are 6 things beginning with C that you really need to address in moving from the as is to the to be where you want to go to. Culture and leadership is one of them, because I think moving forwards, maybe culture is something we really have to set through leadership, because this, more flexible home working requires a different type of culture from, a top-down management structure within an organization. We need to co-create the future. I think, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of managers and directors on television saying, we are going to do this, but they haven't asked their employees what they want to do. They haven't asked their customers what they want to do. They haven't talked to their other stakeholders and their partners in business. And we know that co-creating the future together is by far the best way. And that's something that, we've learned through moving towards the design thinking type of activity, away from strategy as a paper writing exercise and then trying to implement it. We all now, more than ever, need more creativity to come up with new ideas, to come up with better ideas. And we should include people of different backgrounds to give their input. And we should facilitate more creative ways of letting them come up with those ideas. There's a lot of talk about collaboration tools coming out now as people are working at home. Zoom is one of those collaboration tools that we're all sort of trying to get to work, and there are online systems like Miro and Mural and things like that. But it's also about collaborating between organizations and with partners about designing the future. And of course, all of this, moving from as is to be, is really a change program. And so we need to think about a change management approach all the way through it. And we need to get the consent of everybody who's involved, and that includes the employees and the users and all your stakeholders. And then we can, we can move to the new normal. And so I guess that started me thinking, well, how do we do that at Design Thinkers? And here's the sort of extended double diamond approach of design thinking. And I I'd worked in different forms of consultancy, transformation consultancy, change management consultancy, strategy consultancy for about 20 years before I actually started using design thinking. And design thinking seemed intuitive to me because I had a design background, a product design background. And you know, it's all about these three key areas, for, you know, finding the inspiration for change, coming up with ideas, the ideation phase of, you know, you know, figuring out what those new ideas are and prototyping and testing them. And then when we know what we think is going to work, moving forwards into implementing those and delivering them. And this approach, you know, I've sort of modified it from the standard, you know, 4 boxes to put this preparation phase up front, because I think a lot of organizations will want to start to think up front, well, how ambitious are we going to be? What resources are required? What timescales are we going to look at this? Is it, you know, a 5-day design sprint, or is it a 3-month project? That we're going to look at, that we're going to put resources into. And I think that upfront planning in terms of, you know, setting out what the resources are, what the goals are, what the costs and implications might be, are quite good before we move into this, the rest of the inspiration phase, which is actually what we've done in the, you know, the Global Human Research Project. What we've done is we've, you know, looked as far and wide as we can across the world, and we've distilled and reframed what those key insights are, and which are the most important insights really depend on, you know, your own business situation, your own business opportunity, your individual needs and changes as you move forward. So I think, you know, this is how, you know, I think we can move from the as is to the to be, and more than happy to talk to you about that. But for now, let's go into the Q&A session. Have you got any questions, Marita?
I have. Yeah,
okay.
I have some great questions here.
Okay.
Regarding, there is the question, how are people viewing and understanding proximity now? Does the need for cocooning and tribalism contradicts the fear of contagion? Is
okay.
it James or, yes, actually there was 2 questions there, but James or Jorge would like to respond to that.
I'm just reading the question. Understanding proximity. I don't really understand proximity.
Proximity. It's about proximity.
Proximity. Okay, yeah. You kick off, Jorge.
Well, in the Mediterranean culture, proximity is something, and that's probably why it's going so bad here. Proximity is a cultural thing. Give me 1 second. So proximity is a very important thing in this culture, and people are used to socialize constantly. So people are used to get together, to go out, to hug, to kiss, right? And proximity is understood differently in all of the cultures. So we find that some cultures that are more have different protocols about proximity, about touching each other, about personal space, also have a different approach to how they can deal with the social distancing measures that we are as right now. So, for example, in the Mediterranean culture and in the Spanish culture, that is very, very difficult, very, very difficult, especially among young people who are basically hugging and kissing all the time. You know, like, so this makes contagion higher, and the statistics show that the big number has been going down from senior citizens to younger citizens, and in the age of socialization. So that's the matter with proximity. So I think that proximity is very cultural, is very regional. You know, it has to do with the culture, and it has different meanings. For example, in the Latin American culture, uh, touching each other is okay. In the Brazilian world, in the Brazilian culture, hugging and touching is okay. But for example, and Merita, you could reinforce this. Maybe in the Finnish culture, it's not like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was thank you. Okay, yeah, exactly. That's the in Finland. So for us, really, the 6 feet or 2 meters, which has been communicated as the space, which should be used between people in public spaces, is that really Finns feel, oh, that's the old normal. To us, that's always been that way. So to
Yeah.
us, it hasn't had any impact. And I remember when I was in early April, when I was in Seattle, and I lived there full time, but I was there walking in downtown Seattle, and normally it's a lot of people, and there's a bus stop there I came across. There was some people there, and it actually looked like a Finnish bus stop, because people were standing 2 meters apart. And that's what Helsinki is normally like, that people do stand 2 meters apart. And yeah. So for us, and you can actually see the, if you, any of you follow the statistics or the figures regarding the pandemic, that the Finnish numbers are quite low, amazingly low. So that's one aspect of it. I would say another reason, and the cultural reason, is that Finns have a lot of rules, even though a lot of other cultures do have a lot of rules, but the difference being that the Finns do follow the rules quite strictly. So it comes to us quite easily to follow the rules, and so that has another factor why explains why the numbers are so low here compared to a lot of other countries, like you were talking about Spain, okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to contribute to this question by making an observation that, I've got friends who are, quite elderly, and they're really worried about coming out of lockdown, and they say that it doesn't really matter if everything goes back to normal. That they're now afraid to go on public transport. They're afraid to go to a restaurant or to a theatre or anything like that. And I think this also comes down to a certain extent to something Jorge was talking about information and trust, that there's a great deal of ambiguity about the safety of some of these things. And there's a great mistrust of governments like the UK, who are saying, well, we've got to get back to normal for economic reasons. And because that you've got to go to the office instead of working from home. And the reason for that is because all the sandwich bars and the public transport systems can't function on the numbers that they've got, but people are not going back to normal. Yet in certain circumstances, and maybe this is a different tribal thing, in the UK again, there's the whole re-emergence of the rave culture. Group gatherings, nightclubs, bars, and things like that. Discotheques have been banned, and so young people have moved back to the illegal rave culture, where there are, every weekend there are raves springing up with people going back to that. But of course, we're finding ourselves now that people have moved out of lockdown and people are going to the beaches again and things like that, that we're starting to get this resurgence of spread of the virus. So So yeah, there is this dichotomy, if you like, of you know, we're going to have to live with it because we don't have a solution for it for the time being, and we're unlikely to have a solution for it over the course of the next year. So every business,
Yeah.
every retailer, every bar that's opened, every office that's opened, has had to start to put in place, you know, these intermediary measures just to function, and you know, we've got to start thinking, well, this isn't just a 3-month occurrence; it's actually going to happen for a couple of years. So we, you know, we have to start planning for that, and we have to start understanding our customers and our users and our employees uh, as to how we can best go about doing that so that we can make people happy. Another good example was schools. You know, the government in the UK said, we're going to reopen schools, but actually only 40% of families sent their children to schools because they didn't think it was safe. And you know, they're now saying, well, after the summer holidays, all the schools are going to be open again, and it's compulsory to go back. And I know young families who've said to me, "We're not sending our children back." You know, it's an interesting question. Let's move on, Marika. You have another question?
Yeah. I have a questions which we have received already in advance prior to the webinar. So I typed it on, I put it out here in a group chat, but it is, the question is, how are people seeing themselves as a processors of experience or rather as victims of circumstances? How is it influencing their behaviors, attitudes, and habits?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, we with the personas that we showed before, we and mixing the personas with the insights, we realized that some of these personas were more connected with some of the insights, and some others were in connected to others. So we created a matrix where you can see from very creative, proactive, and sometimes even opportunistic profiles that find opportunity in the pandemic to do business, evolve, sell more, many things. You find this type of profiles to people who are actually frozen. They don't know what to do. They are in denial. So they say, this is not happening. I need to keep on going. I need to go to work. I need to go on holiday. So we have all types of self perceptions and perceptions of the world. So some people are actually thinking, I'm really fed up about being locked down. I'm very fed up about all this fear, and I'm going to do life as normal, whatever it takes. So we have a range of behaviors, and we have a range of, let's say, from victimization to total risk and almost suicidal, you know, like the rapes and the big concerts or the big events that are actually still happening in secret. So we have a lot of patterns in behavior. Um, they don't connect to specific cultures, or they don't connect to specific generations, because we do have a lot of, for example, young people expressing fear or expressing paralysis, you know, mental and emotional paralysis. And we have very proactive, I don't know, grandmas that are doing everything to deal up with the pandemic. So it doesn't connect to cultures or age. It connects more with the type of attitude people have towards this kind of situation. And that's very interesting. One important thing on that is that it made everybody reflect on how we live in the world. So how my presence in the world, my consumption, the way I relate to others, my work, my family, my children going here and there or getting sick happen. And we stop and thought, we're still thinking about that. So that's really interesting. And I find that this is a very interesting moment and even an opportunity for companies to rethink the way they offer services and products to people and how to connect with the real values that people are transforming out there and how to serve the clients in a more accurate way. So definitely there is a new normal, and this new normal is not only about taking opportunities in terms of market opportunities, by rethinking the way we produce, the way we commercialize, the way we consume, right? And most people are doing this. So companies and organizations have the opportunity to connect again with people, to connect in different ways with people, either if they are their customers or they are their employees. We're working with a furniture company, a big furniture company. They used to do office furniture, and this pandemic has made them think a lot about big companies closing their headquarters and offices and sending people home. And how will office furniture look when you have no offices or very few offices? And we are recreating, we are reshaping the product catalog to include home office furniture, home office projects, smaller projects, but in a wider scope. So I think this is a good opportunity for organizations and also governments to understand citizens, to understand consumers, and the way we are all changing the way that we think. So
Yeah.
I hope that
Thank
answers
you,
the question.
Jorge.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that, Jorge.
Yeah.
I think we humans, there's a normal distribution curve of people who like change and pursue it, and people who dislike change and reject it.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to how people have responded immediately during the research that we did. I saw some figures which said about 15% of people think they've done really well out of lockdown. And no doubt all those who lost their jobs and maybe going to lose their homes are going to be the opposite of that. One of the things that I think a lot of people said was, as you say, in reflection, maybe we can use this as the moment that we can move forwards towards a more sustainable world. And the reason I say this is because, very often there's a great deal of inertia and resistance to change. A good example of that would be the medical profession, the health services. For years and years and years, they've rejected using online tools like Skype or Zoom for consultations. You physically have to go there. And then suddenly everybody's using, Skype consultations, and they realize, what, we don't have to bring people to the office, to the surgery. We don't have to wait 2 weeks for a consultation. And I think, that realization that things that we've tried to change for years and years and years have suddenly changed overnight has given some people, an ambition to really seize this and to move forward towards a more sustainable world, a greener world, different ways of doing it. People enjoyed the streets being empty, so that they could walk around, and there wasn't suddenly, I don't know if you remember back in the early days, suddenly people realized, there's no pollution from cars. The skies are blue. Why are the skies blue? There's no aeroplanes in the sky. And all of these things started to get people to think about an optimistic outcome, I think, of this. However, humans being humans, I guess, Some people just want to get back to normal as soon as possible. And when I say back to normal, it's back to their old normal, not the new normal. They want to return to their comfortable situation that they know that they existed within. And you know, I guess from that perspective, that you know, they might feel themselves victims to begin with, and they're looking forward to just continuing as they were. I think one of the things that we need to look at is for governments to start to use this as an opportunity to support a greener, more sustainable environment. And I've yet to see much evidence of that, particularly in, you know, global leaders like the USA, which quite frankly aren't doing that at the moment. You know, I think it comes down to individuals and to companies and to organizations to set their own agendas for how they can contribute towards that. Any more questions?
There was, Thank you, James, for adding to what Hoyoke said. There is one question here regarding that whether the stakeholders or the people who were interviewed, whether they were people in power or in charge of managing communities or groups in this pandemic. Just maybe the background of the research, what type of people were interviewed.
We had people.
We've lost your sound. Okay.
Yeah, you are unmuted.
Oh yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, we had people in. We tried to reach as many diverse audiences as possible, and we did have a research part in companies, you know, like with our clients, and then we had another part with regular people, you know, like people, friends of friends and friends of researchers and people they were working before. In the more corporate area, the decisions and the perceptions that clients had were about, of course, about uncertainty and how can I actually be in the range of risk and opportunity, right? So this was, where am I between risk and opportunity? Am I highly at risk or am I highly in the opportunity area? And these were interviews that also were performed. They were performed here. They were performed in Brazil, and they were performed in Israel as well. And most of the people in companies were mostly waiting, mostly expectant of how these would be developed, right? And what we have now, like almost 4 to 5 months after we started this pandemic, is already projects, as I was sharing before. We already have intentions of companies for transformation. So how can I really adapt, you know, for the long term and the midterm, not just solutions for the short term, like what am I going to do this year, but how can this transformation be longer in the midterm and the long term? Because most companies do realize now, you know, like almost end of July, that this is not a temporary situation. When we were back in March, when we were doing the first questions to people in companies, most people thought this was a temporary situation. This was a 3-month situation, and that something was going to happen, and then we will go back to normal, and economy will go back to business as usual. But not anymore. Not beyond May, people in companies were realizing that this was a longer situation, and this was, if not a forced situation to change, an opportunity to evolve and to innovate. So that's somehow good, because they see the bright side of it. Those companies that were heavily affected, like clients that definitely need to do big change or restructure almost completely to go out of the situation, they have a different perception, of course.
Thank you, Jorge. There is still some questions there, but James, you can address.
I've just got something to add to that. Yeah, I had a very interesting conversation with a chief of the Masai Mara tribe in Kenya during lockdown. And, this conversation was about, this is a chief of the tribe, but he's got an MBA, and we became, we came in contact a couple of years ago through some work that I did with USAID and spoke at the USAID International Development Conference, Global International Development Conference in Africa. And I sort of met up with him there. And he talked to me during the crisis, and he said, well, I'm responsible for 4,000 of my tribe. And over the last 20 years, we've gone heavily down the route of tourism because tourism has been booming with cheap airfares and, globalization. People have wanted to come to Africa. So, we more or less stopped all the behavior of, tribespeople who used to have animals and grow their own crops, and they turned it over to game parks because, quite frankly, it was easier to get money from tourists than it was to grow their crops and everything. So we turned all the rural land into game parks, and now we have no tourists whatsoever. And I'm stuck with, how do I feed 4,000 people with no income? And he contacted me because he said, we have to reinvent, we have to diversify, we have to find other ways. Global tourism is no longer sustainable. And, he's really been an inspiration, and he's now feeding 10,000 people who otherwise would have no food whatsoever through aid programs, partly through USAID and other global aid programs and crowdsourced fundraising, etc. But he clearly sees that, it's not just about him. It's about needing to provide leadership for the people he's responsible for. And I think that, I think the winners out of COVID will be those organizations that, as Jorge described earlier, are in this together, that have a shared common interest. There are already many examples of corporations that have taken government money. They're taking it as an opportunity to restructure employees' contracts, to lay people off, etc. And I think those companies will not be the chosen choice of consumers in future. I think the responsible companies, the ones that try to move forward positively, to bring forward the sustainability agenda, to use this as an opportunity to think about global warming and environmental change. I think those are the companies, those leaders are the ones that are going to probably be the winners in future. Marita.
Yeah.
Shall we move on and open up the conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And these questions, we can get back to them via email after the webinar. There's a couple of more questions.
Okay. So we're going to move into what we call, here's some contact details for the three of us. You'll find us all on LinkedIn. These are our LinkedIn profiles. and we'll share this presentation with you after the event. But let's move into the decompression zone and relax a little bit, but open up the conversation. So I'm going to ask you all to unmute now, and you can, if you want to stay with us for 20 minutes, then you can join in the conversation. So you can all unmute yourselves now, I think. Is people joining? Yeah, I can see Naomi joining, Soumya. And people can start their videos as well. Some people have left already.
I wanted to thank you. I have to leave, but thank you. It was very, very interesting. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Naomi, yeah, I can see Naomi, yeah.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Maybe you can start your video as well. Anyone else have any questions?
Or any remarks, observations, anecdotes that you can share? That would be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Peter.
Hi, James. Yeah, long time no see, but I just made a comment just to follow up on yours about older people. I think you'll find also with my 3 children, even younger, the younger population are also saying the same thing about staying at home and not trusting the news also, but also that it's that my eldest has just graduated and obviously is concerned about finding a new job, but she's not worried about that. She's more worried about seeing on the news about all of these people, as you say in the UK, we should say stupidly congregating and not listening to the current guidelines because of their old tribalism instincts are kicking in because now the lockdown has been unfrozen, and that change doesn't seem to be happening with a large group of people. And as Jorge also mentioned, you know, as I know with my family speaking Spanish, the spikes happening. It's curious to understand how governments can make these changes in society itself. Whereas the businesses, you could see the conflict where the business is trying to do something and the external influences are just not helping.
Yeah, yeah. Marita, I think maybe you can talk a little bit about different cultures and
Our
power
cultural
distance
expert.
relationships. Hello?
Yeah. You got frozen, or I got frozen, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, what about, you know, maybe you have some information that you can share with Peter about this, you know, why people aren't sticking by the rules and they're starting to congregate and things. And it reminded me of conversations that I had with you about, you know, Hofstede and power distance relationships as a cultural dimension of different nationalities have different different cultural value systems around this.
Yeah, that's I think exactly that applies. It could be the power distance, but I think in this case regarding UK and USA is probably more to do with their among the highest individualism in the world, which is the other end being the collectivistic scoring. So the USA is the highest in the world and UK the second highest in the world. And so people feel now that because they've been in a lockdown for a couple of months now, so they feel that now they want to kind of manifest their individualism, and that's, I think, at least definitely in US, taking place, this culture that you want to make your own decision, individual decision. It's my decision if I want to be become infected or and I don't so much about mind about other people. So I think that's one. And then the other culture dimension probably plays role, which I was talking about, Finns, and to do with the rules and how to follow the rules. Even now I'm back in Finland after being in the US for a long time on and off, is this irritating all my friends because they all seem to be following the rules, and I kind of never maybe typical Finn in the sense just following rules that strictly, but it's still in me. But now taking me some time now again to get used to it, that you actually do follow rules in this in Helsinki and in Finns too. So I think that's one aspect of it, and definitely UK is not, it's very low uncertainty avoidance culture. So following rules is not that important. So that plays a role probably definitely in UK as well. I don't know if that responds to questions or adds anything to your what
it's not really a question. It was more of an observation that
okay.
Knowing about change management, there will, as James said before, the distribution curve. There will people that love it and accept it, and then there'll be people that really go against it, as you said, like individualism.
Yes.
But clearly, the current situation is the lack of understanding of the consequences of not following it, and it's like, oh, it can't possibly happen to me. And I guess organizations, it would be good that many organizations could make that leap and say, we can take care of the environment while we're at it. Home working is a great thing. There's less people traveling, less accidents, less pollution, and it's they're the selling points, I guess, of having a new framework for people and working. That's the selling point, and not the you could catch this terrible disease, which we obviously need to fix. I don't know how it's going to be done in a global way, and we don't see enough governments doing it themselves, of selling that new positivity. That there are some young people out there that have it, and so entrepreneurs also, and obviously with this group here with the design thinkers, it's things can be different. It's just like dragging a cement behind you, though. The old norm.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's about changing your own behavior, and it's just so for some people it takes more time, but they are more into it, as James explained. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I've got a question for everyone. Maybe everyone can chip in here because we're from different countries. One of the things that seems to be happening is, for the last 20 years, we've been rushing towards globalization and breaking down borders. And now suddenly, in the interest of protecting their countrymen, governments are closing down borders. This has happened between Spain and the UK this week again. It's no longer, you can't just travel between the two, between Spain and France, and that's been sort of pretty typical, and it's all over the world. Countries have been closing their borders and trying to keep people out, and global supply chains are going to start to change. People are starting to say, well, maybe we should manufacture in the UK now and not be reliant upon China, And it certainly affected me. I needed to get a new MacBook at the start of the outbreak when China was locked down in February, and I was told, it's going to be months before we can get you a new MacBook. So is this something that we need to be concerned about now? That we need to adapt to? That we are, we're moving towards this self-protection if you like, rather than globalization. Yes, Jorge.
If I may, there is actually a trend happening from some more than 10 years ago, which is deglobalization. And is this tendency to it's like a reaction to globalization, and is this tendency for local markets and local consumers to uh, revisit their local products and revalue the local things. So more and more with the trade wars that we have seen between the US and China and some other international actors, um, countries in all levels of economic growth have started, going into their own capacity of production, their own capacity of supporting local producers and consumption, and this is growing actually now. So keeping the borders is adds to these. The globalization trend in many ways. With globalization, most of the world uh, uh, got the resources to be self-sustainable. This means to manage the technology and to manage the knowledge. So right now, at any country, you can have the means of production and you can have the means of distribution and the technology to be self-sustainable. So when you have this type of phenomenon like this pandemic, this is the reaction to the pandemic. And it's not new because it's been happening for 10 years already. Not a lot, not very publicized, but it's been happening. Markets are being protective. Consumption is being valued at a local perspective, and people are choosing for more sustainable local zero distance production. So also self-production with 3D printing is easier, and brands are also growing in local markets. So I can connect these with the deglobalization trend that we've been seeing for more than 10 years now.
Thank you, Jorge. Anyone else want to add to that?
I think Jorge's right. Last 10 years, if you look at just how people have been voting in each countries to be, not physically closing the borders, but voting against, movement of people, and I think without realizing that they may imply a deglobalization outlook by businesses. But yeah, and this could be the nail in the coffin to cement certain political statements that we must have closed borders and more restrictions on movement. We don't know still. Obviously, there's from the old norm to the new norm also has political implications as well, not just for businesses and us workers.
Yeah. It's a good point. Anyone else?
There is an interesting comment in the chat actually about glocalizations. It says glocalizations is emerging now to focus more self-reliance and growing local. In India, it is a mix of becoming more self-sustainable, made in India project, also perhaps a kind of protest against neo-colonialism. And there are many factors. I mean, there are many factors that point into regions and cultures being self-sufficient and being self-determined. Like I live in Catalonia, so this is a big example of how we want to be self-determined here. And there are many examples around the globe. So yeah. It's an evolution of globalization. It couldn't expand forever.
Yeah, I think over the last few years as well, you teach overseas students, Jorge, and I teach in the UK, and and it's never ceased to amaze me that, you know, I might have 100 students in a class at design school, and 95 of them are from China. And and the interesting thing is, you know, we've got used to outsourcing manufacture to China as being, you know, low value added, if you like. And actually, the Chinese are desperately trying to build their internal skills for creativity and for design to actually design products rather than just manufacture products.
And if you ask them, and if you ask this generation, they want to go back and contribute to the development of their country.
Yeah,
if you ask them.
Very much so.
A lot of them will answer that I want to go back and work for my country. So this is very interesting, and it's an evolution of I mean, globalization couldn't expand forever. You know, like there is just one world, so it couldn't go anywhere else. So it needs to, you know, keep on going in a different direction.
Now you're depressing me, Jorge.
Why?
I'm going to be stuck here in the UK.
Oh, you can always go somewhere else. You don't like
I've been trying to escape during COVID. I have a ticket booked for later this month, but I suspect it's going to be stopped again.
Oh, you just need to find your window, you know, like.
Yeah.
You won't get back, James, if you do escape. That's the.
Well, you wouldn't mind.
That was my intention, Peter. That was all.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other points? Any other discussion? Do you think? Here's a question for you all. Do you think organisations will, you know, do this shift to the new normal well, or do you think that they'll do what all change programs or 60% of change programs do? They'll fail to do it well.
Some will and some won't. That's normal. I mean, some will. I've been working with some organizations that are, you know, calling saying, Jorge, I think we have an opportunity here. Help me develop this. And we have also organizations who are frozen, you know, like people. And some will and some just won't. Some will close or sell or do other things. But some are really, really, really looking forward to the change, right? Because that's their DNA, I guess. So I guess some will and some won't.
Yeah. We need more organisations to reach out to us, Jorge, to say we want to change. Yeah.
Right, and I think that report you will all get is really that it comes through. I was reading it, preparing for this webinar, that it's definitely the ways of working has been disrupted in every level, in humans and in organizations and homes and families, and the way people do things, that it's here to stay. It's not going to go back to where it was. That's for sure.
No. Not anymore. Yeah, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's been an hour and a half, and I think we've had a very good session together. So I think we've got to the end of our decompression zone time. I will send out copies of the presentation. I have been recording the webinar. At least I missed some of the start of it, but we've got most of the discussion points and the conversation afterwards. So I'll put that up and send links, and I'll send out a copy of the report to everybody. It'll come via WeTransfer because it's quite bulky in terms of size of the report. So I hope to do that probably tomorrow. And if you have any more questions, then please get in touch with us. And if you'd like to bounce ideas, as Jorge says. You know, we're more than open to a conversation to explore what we might be able to do together. And anything you two guys want to say in closing, Marita?
Yeah, it's been very exciting to be part of this design thinking project, the global human resource, and of course I was doing some of the interviews too and got a lot of the insights. So I feel there's a lot more there in the report that what we're able to discuss today, and I think the coming months, coming years, even we can draw from it and get more insights. Yes, and I really enjoyed the session. So thank you for everyone for joining the webinar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been very enjoyable and very nice. So looking forward for the next chapter of these meetings and encounters.
Yes, thank you everyone, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Okay.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.